I definitely have been put on this earth to help things become better. I took the mortal risk of coming out against some of the most powerful people in the world to hope that in the future, the ways that these technologies are used can be more moral and ethically guided than they have been in the past. I really believe that it starts with the next generation and that this is a generational change conversation. So making sure that education about your data rights and basic cybersecurity protocols, screen time management for your mental health, and managing your data footprint online, making sure that you can spot a hacking or a phishing attempt. All of these things should be basic education.
You're wearing a beautiful necklace on your data. I would love for you to explain to us how you made this necklace and what it means to you.
People all over the world, when they see me, because I wear this at conferences that I speak at on an almost daily basis, I wear it to events, galas, dinners, wherever I am, so that people ask me about it, and then I can have a conversation about what data ownership and data protection means to me and what it should hopefully mean to other people.
Welcome to Beyond Luxury, where we explore emerging trends and take them one step further. Join us as we redefine the meaning of luxury in today's ever-evolving world. Building on the themes of my book, Beyond Luxury, The Promise of Emotion, we invite thought leaders from fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, hospitality, culture, and tech to share their insights and story. Welcome to part 2. If you haven't caught up with part 1 yet, I highly recommend starting there. It sets the stage for everything we're about to explore. Let's get right back into it. I want to talk about blockchain now because it's talked about a lot. I'm always a huge proponent of blockchain, and I don't think there's a better person than you to explain the value of blockchain, especially when we're talking about owning our own data and the power of that blockchain. Can you tell us a little bit about how you see blockchain solving some of these issues, and especially when we're talking about data manipulation and privacy abuses?
Absolutely. So for anyone in the audience that doesn't know what blockchain is, it's basically a new form of database. It's not really new. It's been around for a couple decades, but it only really came into popularity and zeitgeist after Bitcoin came to town over a decade ago. And I've been into Bitcoin since 2011. So I've always been really interested in the way that these technologies function. But what we've been using for the past many decades in terms of data storage and databases are a way of storing data where whenever you transfer data, you can't tell when data has gone from one place to another. You can't track and trace that. There's no transparency into data movement or how it's used, where it's going, and therefore what it's being used for. When you have a blockchain-based database, all of the transactions are encrypted and tracked and traced. So whether it's a public blockchain or a private blockchain, you can see where data has gone. All of it is consensual. So if data is going from you to another person or to another database, you have consented and you have signed a transaction. So all of a sudden it brings consent into data transfer, which is such a huge deal. A lot of people don't understand that that is one of the most important points about blockchain, or also known as crypto. Crypto doesn't stand for cryptocurrency, it stands for encryption. So that's a way of ensuring the privacy and consensuality of data transfers. So it makes sure that all of the ones and zeros that make up your data, that you agree when it goes from one place to another. So if I want to share my data with someone, or if I want to send a bit of Bitcoin to somebody, I enter in the address of their wallet where the data will go, and then I consensually sign a transaction. It's signed by both sides, and then the data is transferred. The data cannot be copied and stay in the other place. The data only resides in one place or the other, and there's a permanent record of that data transfer. So all of a sudden you can see how the issue with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook would have never happened. Just to remind people of actually what happened is that Facebook during 2010 to 2015 had a technical loophole, which was called the Friends API, They sold this to any companies that wanted developer access to Facebook. They sold this to over 40,000 companies. And it meant that you could build an app on Facebook. So whether it was Farmville, Candy Crush, or what Disney princess are you, all of those quizzes would ask you for consent for you to share your data. So you would share your data, and instead of that company getting access to just your data, it would also get access to the data of everybody else that you were connected to on Facebook. So all of a sudden, your hundreds or thousands of friends, this developer would get access to everybody's personal data, all of it. And you could tell how quickly, if there was a popular app like Farmville or Candy Crush, all of a sudden the developer of that app would have the data of most people that were on the Facebook platform. Now, when Cambridge Analytica started to use that data, just like the 40,000 other companies that had access to it through a developer contract, that started to become controversial. But Facebook had never gone to these 40,000 companies and asked them to delete the data or done a forensic analysis to see if their user data was still in the databases of any of these companies when they shut down the program. So now in millions of databases around the world, there is the sensitive personal data of everybody on Facebook. And that was because there was no tracking and traceability. There was no right to delete. There was no transparency on how this data was being used or where it went, or any ability to tell where it went so that you could clean it up afterwards. So when you move to a blockchain-based database, you can see all of the data transfers, and nobody can delete or change the record of data transfers. That is there permanently forever. And it's one of the most exciting innovations in technology and ethics, being able to actually provide those mechanisms that allow you to protect your data rights, protect your human rights, your civil rights, while leading a digital life. So I'm obviously a huge advocate. I don't think a lot of other people see blockchain technology in the way that I do, but I don't think a lot of people have spent the past decade trying to change the way that unethical technologies function.
Thank you for that very thorough and tangible explanation with running through exactly what happened with the data in Facebook. It's so, I think, bright and optimistic to see that there's an actual future for data to be traced, to be tracked, and to be encrypted, and to be consensually transferred for so many different reasons. And one of the big reasons that we're here in this conversation today is to look at the future of luxury. And although maybe the first half of our conversation may not seem linked, it is ultra linked to very high value data that is in this world and in this space. And I think that there's an amazing synergy with what you're doing now, with your foundation, with all of your background and experience, and now what you're doing with Chateaushi, which is an incredible there's so many branches of what you're doing in Chateaushi, and you're using blockchain to bring together communities, to bring together legacies and big patrons of history and spaces that have given legacy and a lot of new opportunities to these spaces that have been old, historic, emblematic spaces for people to experience in different ways. I would love for you to a little bit go through what Chateaushi is, and also to talk about how preserving historic real estate and this community building is linked to blockchain, because there's a lot of different angles here. And I think it's such a beautiful way that you've brought together technology, ethics, and the preservation of historic estates.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to talk about, my two biggest passions in one conversation. It's really amazing. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually spent most of my life wanting to be an archaeologist. That's what I felt like I was preparing for and training for my whole life. And I went to university to major in archaeology at the University of Edinburgh. And before I was starting university, I was given the opportunity to have my first job as an archaeologist over the summer. And when I went on, it was kind of a Roman dig all the way at the bottom, but it was kind of Georgian above that. And it was my first opportunity to actually, get my hands dirty and get involved. And, we were basically doing digs in order to do research for the British Museum and trying to preserve the bits of history that we were finding, categorize it, and, get reporting done and get it, learning more about that area of southern England where we were digging and what had happened there. For me, I was so passionate about this, but what I was told by the archaeologist I was working with was that my IQ is probably a little too high to be digging holes and fundraising my whole life. And I thought, what do you mean? Like, this is what I wanted to do my whole life. And they said, no. As much as you want to be preserving history and doing this research work, actually you're going to be spending most of your time fundraising, because historic preservation and research is very underfunded. Of course, as 17-year-old me wasn't really thinking about that so much. It never had occurred to me that was the main thing that a lot of archaeologists had to deal with. And so they said, why don't you go, do something else that will make you enough money in order to go into archaeology, because you're going to have to fund a lot of your own work if you really want to be free to go and do what you like and not constantly pitching for your research to be funded by an institution or other individuals. So I ended up going to university for international law and international relations, and eventually specializing in human rights law with a minor in archaeology, thinking about what could I do in the future to come back to this sector and do something impactful. So after, over a decade in tech as a serial entrepreneur, after leaving Cambridge Analytica, I've built quite a few companies. I've taken 2 of my companies public on NASDAQ. And now I've been thinking, I didn't train as a technologist. I didn't expect to be in technology my entire life. I want to apply technology to what I'm most passionate about, which is how I got involved with Cambridge Analytica in the first place. I wanted to apply technology to politics to solve what I saw as some of the world's biggest problems. But being able to apply technology to historic preservation, wow, I actually get to go all the way back to my roots of what I originally wanted to do with my life. So over the past, it really has been on and off for 7 years. When I quit Cambridge Analytica in January 2018, I nearly started Chateaushi and ended up becoming a whistleblower and had to take that on full time. Not like it's a paid job, but take on pro bono whistleblowing as my main occupation, and put all of my other ventures to the side. So 2.5 years ago, when I saw the opportunity to get back into the historic preservation space, I started building a team to create a group that could do alternative financing and community building around historic preservation, so that 1, it would be sustainably funded, but 2, so that it wasn't just a single financing, but we could actually build community around these activities so that there could be financial sustainability over the long term for the preservation of historic estates, antiquities, anything that really deserves to still be there for our children and grandchildren. Grade listed buildings, landmarks, monuments, places of national importance, where national history would be less so if these places were not open to the public or were not still in good condition. So for the past 2.5 years, we've been building Chateaushi, which is now our new private members club, which brings together historic estate owners and investors for historic preservation in order to create liquidity events and a treasury for historic estates. So blockchain is one of the ways that we do this. We can do security tokenization of historic estates. We can also do utility tokenization or NFTs of particular art and antiquities in order to create a liquidity event on those, bringing financing, usually in a trust model for the estate, whether it's an art estate of objects or whether it's a physical estate, real estate and land, but creating a sum of money where there's many years of restoration, upkeep, and commercial development funding available. And then as that gets deployed, a community that can help with the commercial development of these estates. So whether it's adding a, Michelin star chef doing the menu in a restaurant, or sustainable agriculture that feeds that restaurant, or an equestrian club, racket sports, a longevity spa, or just incredible people from around the world that just found out about how amazing this place is and are booking rooms or booking out the estate. We allow our members to invest in these estates as opposed to just renting them, which is really amazing. And then we allow our estate owners to choose exactly what they want to do for their legacy of this heritage that their family's usually been looking after for, sometimes over 1,000 years. So it's a really incredible opportunity to bring alternative finance and communities to historic preservation for the first time.
Stop everything you're doing. If you love our podcast and are passionate about the future of luxury, don't forget to hit follow. The more followers we have, the bigger guests we can bring on. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. So thank you. Wow. I love that it's really like in the essence of your both sides and what you're doing. And honestly, I was thinking about it while you were talking. Maybe you're the data archaeologist, breaking that and bringing it now to finance and financing these beautiful projects that you're working on now in Chateaushi, and the beautiful and brilliant community that you're bringing together as well, which I think is one of the big value adds as well of what you're offering, especially in today's age where human connection is a little bit less, especially talking about social media and all of this digitalization of our life. It's more rare, unfortunately, to have this human connection, and the spaces and events and community building that you're offering brings this inside and around preserved historical buildings and estates, and that just brings it one level higher, right? So it's beautiful to hear how you're now putting those two things together. Also, kudos to the name. I love it, Chateau, and the play on words of Chateau and Satoshi is amazing.
Thank you.
And I truly commend everything you're doing. It's absolutely, I think, inspiring to hear that there's people like you out there really fighting for these ethics and also bringing it to something that they love, like Chateaushi. I think to kind of close this off, I would love to ask you one more question about where you see the future of this advocacy around data and data ownership, and where you're taking your leadership to take it one step further. And of course, we've talked about a lot of the projects that you've been on lately, including being a full-time whistleblower, which I can't even imagine how much work that must have been, pro bono work, to also maybe ones that you haven't talked about yet. What is the next stage of really making sure that we're future-proofing these data and digital spaces to allow us to have a more brighter and more desirable future?
Well, for me, I really believe that there's two ways of looking at the kind of future of data ownership question. And one is from the point of view of individuals, and another is from the point of view of institutions and companies. For me, my ultimate dream for individuals is that instead of our data being taken from us, where we have no consent or transparency into where it's going and how it's being used, which is how data has really been functioning for the past many decades. The way that I see the future is that everyone will actually be able to own their data on a legal and regulatory level. They'll understand what that means and be able to choose what data you keep private, but all of the data that you're very happy to share, you could share safely and anonymously or pseudonymously, and get paid for sharing that data. Right now, you're creating that data as the creator of a multi-trillion-dollar international industry that you currently are only feeding into, but you're not getting anything back from. Even just owning a percentage of the value of our data would pay us enough every day to take care of our groceries. So if everyone could have a data wallet
Wow.
where, yeah, thank you for allowing that to land. Because for me, as someone who trained as a human rights lawyer and for a while worked in kind of conflict resolution and protection of human rights, one of the biggest thing around the world is trying to figure out how to secure the most basic of human rights, which is food and clean water. And if everyone earned money from their data that is being used by all of the world's largest corporations, governments, every organization around the world, we would have enough to pay for our groceries. Everybody would. You could scan your data wallet and pay your grocery bill. So for me, that is the ultimate goal. It is possible. It absolutely is. And it's something where some of these technologies already exist, and many new ones are launching, and many countries around the world are starting to pass data ownership laws that actually say that you own your data and that you own a percentage of that monetization. So we're still in the beginning of this precipice, but there is a turning point that's happening now. And that's really how I see the future from the individual's perspective. From the corporate perspective, I see the ability for corporations to use data ownership to retain trust and an engaging relationship with their consumers. If you look traditionally, the way that a lot of acknowledgement of data usage has manifested has been in loyalty programs. You know, the more data you're creating in someone's platform, the more information you're sharing with them, they're giving you loyalty points for what you've done within their app or with their company and purchasing activity and behavioral data. All of that ends up earning you points, which you can then use for something else. But no one's really recognized the fact, to be transparent with consumers, that it's really a data game. We're not just giving you points because you've purchased things. We're giving you points because the data that you're creating is incredibly useful for us in order to sell you the next product or sell anyone else the next product, how to upsell, how to develop our next season's line so that we know what's most interesting for you. And so recognizing that any data that is being shared between a consumer and the company is something that you can be rewarded for, I think is the next step in kind of consumer trust. And I think the best brands that are going to be at the head of the game are going to be the ones that start to really have a transparent relationship around data usage with their users. So from both the individual and corporate side, I really believe that more transparency, leaning towards data ethics, meaning not just data protection and basic legal compliance, but what really could you do with data in order to be more ethical and be a thought leader in the space for brands and companies and even governments, I think is a really important way to see kind of forward-looking strategy and how to future-proof your brand and your company. And that's really where I see that everyone who is in charge of strategies like this should be more forward-thinking and really think about how to implement these strategies for their own purposes.
Mm. Thank you so much, Brittany, for laying that out and for really being one of the big motors that are pushing this new wave of data and data ethics forward, and truly allowing us to have systemic change in something that has been needed a long time from now, and hopefully will come very soon. I am so grateful to have had you on this podcast. I can't tell you how much value your work and everything you've shared with us today is giving me, and I know a lot of people listening, especially around the topic of the importance of blockchain for this specific cause around protection of data. And thank you for continuing to do this.
Absolutely. And thank you again for having me today. I so enjoyed it.
For weekly updates on future trends and the latest insights and data on the luxury industry, be sure to follow us on the Beyond Luxury's weekly Substack. Discover our bespoke trend reports and come to us for luxury futures consulting at Beyond Luxury Group.